Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about past life exploration. Yes, that's a thinker. And thankfully for me, I have John here, a special guest who's going to help me think about this so that we all can think about this in another way. So, John, I have to ask you, when
Yeah.
you hear the words past life exploration, what does that make you think about?
Oh my. Well, it starts with thinking, by the way, thank you for having me in this life. I start thinking about the simple fact of reincarnation as the way the universe is designed. And that is, if your listeners, viewers only get one thing, consider the possibility that this is real, that human beings, souls incarnate and reincarnate. And you don't have to take my word for it. I always point people to the work of someone called Ian Stevenson, Division of University of Virginia. It's called Perceptual Studies. And he was a regular psychiatrist and became interested in past life work. And what he's done is rigorously investigated the possibility that this is the way things are. And what he does, he studied thousands of kids who have spontaneous past life memories. He gets kids who are typically under 6 years of age before they have a chance to be corrupted by television, movies, and books. And he goes back and he calls them solving cases, where he goes back and he finds, yeah, this person did live, and oftentimes getting autopsy photos when available. Finding things like, yeah, this guy said this kid said he was a butcher and he'd cut his finger off when he was doing his work in, China. And it was able to find in some cases, yeah, this butcher did live and he didn't have a missing finger. Um, you can't, uh, anybody who's seriously interested in this owes it to themselves to read at least one of his books. His main book was called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, because he's an
Wow.
academic and he's very cautious about that. In my own experience, I know the reason you asked me to be here is in my book, which is called My Autobiographies, an introduction to past life exploration for personal and spiritual growth. And in my own case, I've experienced about 25 past lives working with other people. I can't swear to you that I really was Private O'Reilly, the first Continental Dragoons, or my wife's wife when she was a blacksmith named Victor. I may have made it up because with grown-ups, you can't tell. You really
Yeah.
can't tell. I
Yeah.
believe these things were real, but but with
That's the
ESC's
hard thing.
work, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing is that once you become an adult, it's hard to sometimes differentiate, if I'm saying it right, separate the two between reality and fantasy. You know what I mean?
I would
And
say it's impossible. And one of the things,
yeah.
as a profession, I'm a hypnotist. I typically work with people with things like with smoking, handle stress. I worked in oncology for several years with cancer patients, coping with that. Um, and there's a thing in hypnosis called false memory syndrome, which is
Mm.
why hypnotically recovered memories aren't admissible in courts of law because you can make it up and it can seem very, very real. And
I've
so that could be occurring in this, yes.
I've also heard that with dissociative identity disorder as well, is that it's hard to tell those as it's hard to identify not because of the personalities, but because of the way it comes about with the therapist and the doctor that you can kind of basically train somebody in a
Oh,
sense
absolutely.
to have that. So it's really there's so many gray areas when it comes to this. Because I consider myself an old soul. I truly believe I've been reincarnated because sometimes I can just have these images and these glimpses, you know what I mean, of your past life in certain parts that just seem so surreal. And sometimes you could just interact with certain people and you just like, I know that soul somewhere, or oh, that one gives me really bad vibes. I shouldn't, I recognize why, but I don't know why. You know what I mean? There's always those real feelings that still attach to you when you're living this now that we are in, because that's what it is. It's our now that we are in, but it doesn't take away what we've already lived through. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. And by the way, I know that I'm unique in this field. And I have an analytical mind as well as the other type of mind. And my mission is to communicate these principles to regular people in a way that they find accessible and more acceptable. A lot of people that I hang with in the world of reincarnation, God bless their hearts, they speak with certainty. I
Yeah.
can't speak with certainty because I know too much. I believe that my experiences were real.
Yeah, I understand that
I
statement.
can't. I,
Not many people would understand that statement, but man, am I able to relate with you with that statement is that you know, but you can't stand with certainty because you know so much. And the
yeah,
possibilities is truly infinite. So it's just like where you stand, you just have to just do what you got to do in the moment in the time that you're in because you're meant for another life, right? You're meant to keep
I
going.
will tell you this though: the benefits of doing this work for people are immense. I was thinking about our interview, what I really wanted takeaways to be, and one takeaway is how it affects your perception of reality when you look at life as being not a one and done, but you're here again. And there's so many different things, advantages to it. When you've been both the victim and the victimizer, I had experienced my lives was a slave in American South before manumission when they freed the slaves. But I also had experience of being an SS guard at one of the subsidiary counts of Auschwitz. When you've been victim and victimizer, it alters your perception of things. And that's one huge benefit. When you've been male and female, it alters your perception of gender. But the main thing is the notion of adversity. A lot of people who have religions have to bend over backwards to explain why God does bad things to good people. If you have a traditional religion, why does God choose a baby to be born with a horrible hair lip or some horrible congenital childhood disease? Why does act of God take out a whole family with a tornado that was doing good work and doing nothing? And religions try hard to bend over backwards to explain it. When you accept that we choose our own reality, that we choose our parents, we choose our circumstances, that all of this is spiritual school for our own growth and development, it gives you a different perspective on life. Adversity doesn't seem the same. It's easier to accept crap if you look within the crap for the lesson that's contained there for you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not
That is
sure.
really interesting.
Excuse me. Human can avoid being upset when bad stuff happens. But when you do this work, you're able to fairly quickly step back and see, okay, I chose this. What's the lesson here? Where's my
I
growth?
think I think that's the problem is that people don't want to take accountability for their own actions. They don't want to, I think, admit the fact that their choices has repercussions, good or bad.
And
And that's the
sure.
problem that every human being faces. And I think that's the reason why we end up repressing so much of our past life and even our current moment sometimes because how can we fathom to accept a reality that doesn't seem acceptable? You know what I mean? I think that's the problem. So I guess my question is to you, when you came about, how young were you when you started to realize I needed to go in a different direction?
Um, I never realized that. I backed into this. I mean, I was born with a different direction. I was always somebody who had a skeptical mind. I was always somebody who was interested in God. What's it all about? I was, I had this unique experience as a little guy. I was raised Catholic. My mother was Protestant, and my mother would be my coach for memorization of Catholic dogma, and she would say things to me like, "Well, that's what you're supposed to believe." I was raised as a free thinker. The way I got into past life was a friend of mine, his wife was doing past life facilitation. And I'm interested in these kinds of things generally, but I was never specifically interested in past lives. So I went to this person, and the result was incredible. 10 minutes after being in her house, I'm suddenly experiencing my life as Private O'Reilly of the First Continental Dragoons. And I experience it as if I'm there. People have
Mm-hmm.
different ways of experiencing past lives. Some it's like a story, some it's like a vague sense. For me, it's usually I'm there. And I was, my mind was blown, and I knew I had to know more about this stuff. And that's when I began my investigation. But I didn't talk about it professionally. I was working with people in medical. I needed medical referrals. I didn't want the locally to think I was a lunatic. So
Yeah.
I would do, I probably did about, I think about 20 past lives as a hypnotist with clients when people asked me to. But I never
Mm-hmm.
promoted it. I never said I did it. And then suddenly, I wrote my book. My book came out about 3 years ago, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
And at my advanced age in this incarnation, I don't care anymore what people think about me.
Yeah.
So much of my life, I thought I cared. I mean, I care to a degree. Of course, everyone cares, but not with the same. I don't have to make money at my
Yeah.
work anymore.
Yeah, so it's like you get this sense of freedom once you realize that what does it matter what people are gonna say?
Yeah,
And once
that's why a
you
lot of old folks are so, you know, they say,
so you gotta love them. You gotta love the old folks because they have no filter. And
"No
that's what I
filter."
love. I love old folks with no filter because one, it's funny, two, it's real, and three, it's a reality check that some people may need. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think people realize that when you have that freedom of just not caring, but in a respectful manner, obviously, you have this sense of freedom. Like, okay, if you like it, great, take it. If you don't like it, well, then you know what, throw it to the grass because it means nothing to you anyways. But it's going to be said because at the end of the day, it makes me feel good knowing that I said it. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like, you have to live for yourself. You have to do what feels right for you because it's going to be like an inchworm in your mind if you don't say certain things or if you don't do certain things that just feel naturally right in my opinion. I mean, do you think
Now,
that's
this could be
true?
an old folks unfiltered thing, but could I ask how old you are now, Mitzi?
How old I am? I am 31.
Yeah. To get this perception at your age is a wonderful gift.
It is.
You don't have to become old to be able to speak your truth and to honor your truth and not to care what people think. And to have it at 31, you're miles ahead of where I was at your age.
Thank you. I think I have always been an old soul. I've always thought differently, acted differently, performed in life differently than my sisters and just my family members. They always said that I was just different. So I always just rejected that side for so long. And then one day I just woke up and I was just like, I'm done. It's so hard to please the masses that it kills you inside. It's not worth it. So once I got the reality check, I went to God and he showed me the truth, and the more questions that I asked, the more truth that I find, and I find more about myself. So I'm able to recognize this
Mhm.
is real. You know what I mean? I'm able to recognize this reality. And it's so beautiful to be able to speak about this because it is a taboo. At the end of the day, I don't care what anybody says, speaking about reincarnation in this day and age is still a taboo because people don't want to think about it like that. And I love how you also said that they always try to rationalize religion, and it bothers me because religion in my mind is all about rules. It's all about rules. You got to follow so many rules, and that's one thing that I hate is that I don't like to say I'm religious because I don't follow rules. I follow my spirit. I follow what God talks to me and communicates with me because I believe that we all have that specific relationship with God. You know what I mean? It's all different. It's going to look different. It's going to be different. It's going to sound different. It's going to just be different because God needs something different from each and every one of us. So it's like when you tap into that, it's like, oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful feeling. But anyways, sorry, we got off track.
It's also
um,
it's also all made up.
yeah.
All religion. is man-made, human-made. Uh, and I know some people find a path to God through religion, and I have to respect that, and I do. But that's never been my path. It sounds like it's never been yours or isn't yours.
Everyone's yeah, everyone's different. Everyone's different at the end of the day. But quick question. I have a quote here because I'm a quote queen. I love quotes. Um, so I would like your opinions on this. So the quote says, "Your past lives are a map of your soul's journey." So what does that quote make you think about?
Uh, it's interesting. I mean, I suppose that that's true, but I'm less interested in the map than in the journey, frankly. And I think I'll give you an example how this works. I'll give you two examples. One is mine, one else's. Mine is people that like me who are self-employed, we're dependent on reviews. And I got a horrible, horrible, scathing one-star review on Yelp. And I never worked with the person. I had misscheduled. I offered to work with her for free, and her response was to tear me apart on Yelp. And my reaction was over the top.
Mm,
I knew it was over the top. I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't pray it away. I couldn't meditate it away. And so I called this facilitator I trust, and I went back and I found myself experiencing a life as Brother Thomas, who was a monk in the 15th century, who was an academic, who loved his life. And he had, I think it was 12 students who were learning to become priests. And a new one comes and he disrespects me as Brother Thomas. Turns out he's the Archbishop's nephew. And back in the day, Archbishop's nephew meant Archbishop's son. And I complained to the abbot. I think the abbot's my friend. I get brought to the Archbishop's palace. I get demoted. My whole life falls apart. And having had that, and hang myself as Brother Thomas, I hang myself. And so carried into this life, the suicide is never a good option as a solution to life. The repercussions, not only in this life, but future lives. So I brought into this life that feeling of betrayal and guilt and, etc. And that, having had that experience, the Yelp review didn't bother me
mm,
anymore in this life. So that's my experience exploration can do for a person. A lot of people that I know and worked with have been in psychotherapy for years and they've reached a wall where they can't get anything beyond. Oftentimes, not every time, oftentimes what's behind that wall is a past life that they come
mhm.
over into this life. And another is this client I had, and I have permission to talk about her story. She had dated guys and they always betrayed her. And
Okay.
she would get well with guys and they would betray her. And our friends would say, "You're doing the same guy in a different body." "Oh no, this is different. It's gonna." And she heard this guy she was dating said to her, "I really like you, but I want you to know I don't do monogamy. No, I just don't
Mm,
believe in it." And she heard us thinking, "I can fix him." And that was her wake-up call. The psychotherapy, 10 years of it hadn't worked. So one session with me, she found herself as a concubine in Mideast, ancient times. Noble position to be a concubine, wasn't disrespectful, but she was not a wife. And the prince was going to, he said he was going to make her a wife, the head wife at that. Wives found out, and she became entombed. And she died in this life in a tomb, literally waiting for her prince to come. And she brought that into this life, replicating over and over and over and over. Does he really love me? Is he going to kind of rescue me? Because in that other life, she spent days dying in tombs, waiting for her prince to rescue her, and he never came. So that is available to people who want to do this work, to find something that's got you nuts, got you by the throat in this life, and to find out, and not only find out, understanding is of some importance. Cathartic relief is of much, much more importance. And to that point, does it really matter if I really was Brother Thomas, if she really was a concubine? No, I don't believe it does, because the cathartic relief is there.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point that I don't think I thought about that before. I didn't even think about that. that is a valid point.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's kind of like I am so beyond the debate. Ian Stevenson's work convinces me without a doubt this is the way the universe is designed. To me, there's no doubt. He's proven it. Um, anybody who wants to not believe in reincarnation as reality, who fails to read his book and know the University of Virginia's work continues to this day. Thousands of cases.
Yeah, I had a guest on my show who actually has a podcast about just people submitting their reincarnation stories, and she just plays it out for for everybody else, and they're just stories of how people remember their past lives and what they've done and how now they're just adjusting and when they realize that. And it's a beautiful thing because I think people need to start thinking about this. Play with the thought, if anything, and go to people that you feel safe with to discuss these type of things. And it's sad that the time is coming up to an end. So I have to ask you some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with because you already gave us really a lot to think about. Even myself, I know I'm going to be thinking about this all for the
How
rest
much
of the
time?
day.
How much time do we have before we close?
5 minutes.
Excellent. Can I read a poem?
Yeah, go
My
ahead.
book? In
Yeah.
each of the books, I do a poem. It was the best way that life could express itself. But I also wrote a poem at the end of it called Our Autobiographies, Yours and Mine. And it starts out, this is my words of wisdom. If all the world is a stage and you and I the cast, who watches the show? God, our higher selves, ourselves? Or are these dramas simply stored on forgotten shelves, forever unread, forever unseen? Perhaps not even by ourselves, unless old age finds us musing. Yes, this was me. I lived an amazing dream now coming to an end. Is that all there is? Tales told by myself to myself, empty, meaningless, like a play performed in the theater with all the seats empty? Or do you and I play a role in this great epic with a divine audience in rapt attention to every twist and turn of our plots, a series of never-ending beginnings, each a step closer to transcendence, to the divine, something at stake of far more significance than any life, success, failure, sadness, grief, or joy. So I choose to believe and invite you, dear listener, to join me in this magical quest, to be not your body or your mind, but witnessing divinity, growing, infinite unfolding, becoming one with whatever creates this universe, the cosmic observer, the universal creator, the master storyteller, that which creates this before the beginning, as the end, always present, going to be found and refound over and over, joy, joyously rediscovered and rediscovering within. That's my words of wisdom. And this perspective is available to anybody who wants to start looking at their past lives. I
Really
think,
good. Oh, where can you find this book?
well, Amazon, everything's on Amazon, right?
Right, let's be honest, everything's on Amazon. You're absolutely right. That's so true.
And they'll
Well,
deliver it
that
in 24 hours, right? So,
right, or you can get an ebook, and there you go. You get it right there
an ebook
instantly.
immediately.
Right, exactly. One, two, three, and voila, it's there.
Good luck in your journey. You said earlier that you did this partially as your own spiritual path. What a wonderful path you've chosen,
Thank you, thank you.
or that has chosen you.
Right, exactly. Who knows at this point? But I'm just going one step at a time and wishing for the best. And if anybody's out there who's truly trying to think about this and trying to figure out what is that block, because man, that's a valid point that John made earlier today. What is blocking you? Maybe you need to seek further information. So let's think about it. Go check out John's website. Check out all the great things that he has to offer the world because he has a good website with a lot to think about. So, with that being said, always keep thinking, y'all.